Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean D'Souza, and here's a question that I got from Natalia Murphy. The question is, how do you guys work together? As you know, Psychotactics is not a very big business. We chose to keep it small. It's just me and my wife. And maybe you work with a spouse or with a partner, or maybe you're considering it at some point in time. How does it all work out? That's what this interview is all about. Now here's the interesting part about this interview. I have a whole bunch of microphones. I have a whole bunch of lavaliers, 2 or 3 desktop mics. And when I did this interview, I thought everything was working out really well. I found out later that on Skype, I was sounding terrible. So the quality is not outstanding, but it's not bad either. Anyway, after I did this interview, I learned from it. I went out and bought the correct equipment, and now the Skype calls are pretty good. So if you listen to future interviews, they should be good. But for now, this is Natalia Murphy asking all of those questions that you probably wanted to know.
So again, going back to originally when you started your company, Renuka had her own job in the corporate world. If I remember it, she was perfume sales. Is that right? Marketing?
It wasn't perfume. It was fragrances. So
fragrances.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Givaudan is a Swiss company. It's one of the largest in the world. Every kind of fragrance that goes into your detergent, all kinds of stuff that you can smell in the store, in the supermarket. That's where they make it at that company. Kind of almost the biggest company that you could ever dream of that makes fragrances. And then they also make flavors, so that's another department, and that's what makes your noodles taste like chicken or whatever.
Oh my gosh, never even thought about that. So my understanding is Renuka wasn't really happy in that company, and then you had found some success at Psychotactics. Was it rebranded as Psychotactics at that point, or was it still $1 million?
She was happy in that company. That company was back in India. It's the company that, when she got to New Zealand, she was working for L'Oreal, which you've probably heard of.
Oh, yes.
And the company in New Zealand was the problem. Her boss in New Zealand was the problem.
Okay.
And at that point in time, I think I'd kind of transitioned out of $1 million. I'm not sure the exact timeline, but I think we were already into Psychotactics at that point in time.
Okay. And so rather than looking for another company to join, since she wasn't happy at L'Oreal, how was the decision made to have her join Psychotactics instead?
She had no intention of joining Psychotactics. She just wanted another job. She had grown up in a family that pretty much prized jobs more than business. Her mother to this day says things like, "Oh, businessmen, they're just cheats."
And Renuka married one in her eyes, probably.
Well, I guess it's the fear of the unknown. Her mother also didn't like computers, but now she has 2 iPads. So it's just the fear of the unknown more than anything else. And she grew up in this family where everybody went to work. It was very hard for her to comprehend the fact that she could just be part of a business. It was almost impossible for her to reconcile to that fact. So for about 3 months after she quit, she was just kind of getting her energy back. She was so tired from that job that she had had for just a year. And she was not having a lot of success in finding another job simply because
It's at this point
the
that I
New
talk
Zealand
about
market is
our
much
morning
smaller
walk.
than most
The morning
markets on the
walk has
planet.
been very useful. I don't really care for it. I prefer to walk in places that I haven't walked before, like when we're on vacation. But to do the morning walk every day, it feels like it's taking away from my work. But that walk has really helped us work out things, discuss things, and of course we listen to audio and podcasts, and then we discuss things about our lives. And it's on one of those walks that we had this discussion that instead of looking for another job, Renuka should just be part of Psychotactics.
We go for a walk every day. In fact, after this call, we'll be going for a walk. And it was on one of those walks that I said, well, if you're good at marketing, we're a marketing company, why don't you join us? And I mean, strictly speaking, if you want to talk in company talk, we had no role for her. And the early days were, we had a program called MailLoop, which is similar to MailChimp and Aweber, only a lot more cumbersome. You physically had to send out the emails from your computer. So every single email went out just like it does with Gmail.
Uh-huh.
So if you had 4,000 people on your list, you had to wait until every single email went out one at a time.
Oh my gosh.
And then it would bounce back. So that was the first program that she worked with. And I was kind of petrified. I would stand over her shoulder, hoping that she wouldn't make a mistake. Because I'd made mistakes before, so I knew that it was possible. And that was the only memory I have of the starting point. And now it's been, 14 years. So she does something in the other room, and I know it's very, very important. And I do something in the other room, and she knows it's very, very important. And I'm not sure we can strictly define what the other person does.
Okay. Do you remember anything about how you got to the point where you were both comfortable in what you were doing in the business? And you said, I remember in one post you said that it took Renuka about 1.5 years before she really had found her groove, so to speak, within Psychotactics. So how did you get to that point where you were finally able to gel and know that Renuka's doing what she's good at, I'm doing what I'm good at, and we don't have any holes? Those are actually two separate questions.
I don't think she had a problem joining Psychotactics or the issue with Psychotactics. It was just transitioning from a business to an entrepreneur lifestyle, or whatever you want to call it. She didn't in her mind figure out how this thing could work, or didn't want to figure out why it would work or how it would work. As far as she was concerned, a job provided all that she needed until that point in time. And whether it was Psychotactics or any other thing, she wasn't really interested. The only reason why she moved across was because there was no other option at that point in time. At least no option that we could think of. In the early days, we had one bedroom that we'd allocated as the office. We had a single computer.
Wow.
And both of us worked off that computer, which meant that I would work for a few hours and then she would work for a few hours. And even thinking about it right now, it seems very unreal. It seems like I'm making this up in my own head. I think a lot of couples seem to kind of battle over what they need to do, but I think that kind of the stuff that we do, she doesn't want to do what I do, and I don't want to do what she does. So she gets all excited with Excel. For me, it's like, just douse me in water or do something, then give me Excel. I just hate Excel. She can spend all day in Excel. She likes to make little charts. She does search engine optimization. She can go playing around with keywords for weeks on end if she was given a chance. I have no intention of doing that at all. So yesterday I just decided that well, I give presentations and I would like the presentation to be more like a stand-up comedy kind of thing, which is very difficult. I mean, it's difficult. It's hard enough to just do a presentation on stage for most people. But that's what I want to do. And she has no intention of ever getting on stage, ever. Like, she was in a presentation back in 2006 or 2007 in California for about 30 minutes. It was a case of she got there like being dragged and kicked to the stage, you know. So we don't have that situation that a lot of people seem to.
Okay, so it sounds like you've both found your strengths and you're both working in the areas you want to work in, so that's cool. What about business decisions? The company, is very much both of your company at this point. How are business decisions made?
She starts with saying no to everything.
And how often does that no remain a no after you're done?
I think she's softened over the years, but it worked really well and it worked to our advantage in the beginning because everything was, and still is, this program cost $1,000, that cost $2,000. And me being me, I wanted to get to everything. Today, the internet has changed dramatically where you have access to a lot more information. But back then, you had to buy the CDs, you had to buy the books. So we were already spending.
When I say education, what I really mean
education.
is the information that was available at that point in time, both on the internet and off the internet. But mostly it was off the internet. It was direct mail that was being sent to us, and we were buying into workshops and courses, and most of the information came in these big binders and on CDs. A lot of it was extremely expensive. I remember buying some stuff off eBay. It was a recording of some event, and I don't even know whether it was the original event or the original CDs, but that one set of CDs cost over $1,000. So it wasn't cheap, and the workshops weren't cheap either. Some of them were $1,500, but some of them were as much as $8,000. So we spent a lot. And while we have a lot of choice today, even back then, there was lots to buy.
Then I would want to buy something else. And she would go, no. And so I had to learn how to barter, how to do things that, well, I would have not normally thought of. But even today, if I come up with something, her first response is either, I'm too sleepy to think about it, or no. and often these discussions are like today on Friday, when we're going for a walk. We won't listen to podcasts, we'll just be talking about stuff. And I'll come up with this idea. Like a few weeks ago, someone contacted me and said, we can get some sponsors for the podcast. And she goes, no. And I said, you didn't even think about it. You didn't even consider it. It's like, just no. But yeah, that's her default sound.
So it's interesting that in the past, you've mentioned that you don't do affiliate marketing, you don't do advertising, you don't do joint ventures. And so it's interesting that you're considering bringing sponsors into your podcast, because it seems to be a turn away from how you do things on your website. Tell me about that.
It's not a turn away. It's just that I will consider everything, just because I look at it not just from my point of view. First of all, I didn't say that I was going with sponsors.
I know.
Yeah, but I also look, whenever I get someone asking me something, I always look at it from the point of view of my clients as well. So I will look at it and say, okay, so they consider you to be a crazy person. And now you're going to say no to someone who's saying, oh, we'll sponsor your podcast. Let me just at least speak to them for like 30 minutes and find out what they're offering, how they're going about it, so that if a client has this problem in the future, you can sensibly answer the question. course, we canceled, or we just killed that conversation with the sponsors. But the point is that I'm curious about it. And Renuka's thing is like, okay, this is one more level of something that we have to manage. And so we kind of work differently or think differently, and it works really well for us. In fact, I think that's the main thing. The biggest, when you find that a couple will say, well, we can't really get together, or we can't seem to work together, it's usually because both of them want to do this same thing, want to share the same spotlight. And I think that we're different in that way, in the sense that we don't want to share the same spotlight. It's like, you do whatever you want, I'll do whatever I want.
Okay, great. Has there ever been a time when there was a very large difference of opinion in a business issue? And if so, how did you guys handle that?
I have no idea what you're talking about, because it's never happened.
Okay, great.
But the thing is that almost always I would go, okay, we have to do this workshop. We have to do this thing. We have to. So I come up with all these millions of plans, and effectively Renuka starts killing them. And it's a good idea, because I can come up with far more plans, and then I get too deep into it, and of course I'll get exhausted. It brings a whole bunch of problems. So she's very good at that. But there are times, like, you know, I think the workshop that you attended in 2010 in the US, when she will come in and go, okay, we have to have a workshop. And I'm going, no, I don't feel like having a workshop at all this year. You never talk about workshops. Why do we have to have this workshop? And she'll go, no, we have to have a workshop. And we had to have one in like 6 or 8 weeks. We had to organize everything. And then we were going to California, DC, and then Vancouver in 6 or 8 weeks. And it was all her idea. So, I mean, I'm happy to go along, but we don't have big disagreements. I think the biggest disagreement we've had, which has been running for close to 12 years.
This is an interesting discussion,
strategic alliances.
This point of difference. And I think it's interesting because we often don't pay attention to what the other person is saying. We can hear what they're saying, and they say it many times, but we don't pay attention. We are listening to what we want to hear, or hearing what we want to hear. And it took me a long time to figure this one out. But here we go. The problem with strategic alliances, or at least my problem with strategic alliances.
As far as I'm concerned, it's like, okay, you're handling this part of the thing, I'm handling this part of the thing, but maybe you can handle some of the strategic alliances, get in touch with people, then I can, back then we would be on interviews, or maybe we'd get on their blogs or whatever, and I'd say, well, at least get in touch with them, have a conversation with them, and it was one of those conversations that would end up with some kind of silence. And I would get all upset. And after about 12 years, I figured it out. She's never going to do it. So
and now you know. So how has working together affected the marriage?
I don't think it has affected it in any way. I don't know how to pin down that statement, how it has affected it, because I think it wouldn't be exactly the same, it would be just different. But it hasn't affected it in any way. It hasn't got it better or worse.
Okay, so it's just a part of your life now.
Yeah,
really.
What it has done is we have definitely more time together, which of course a lot of people would not want. But we go for a walk in the morning, we spend all day together, we go to lunch together. It doesn't seem to bother us. But before, she would be gone all day at work. So in that way, it has changed. So I would say it's changed. It's not so much how it has affected us. But it has helped us do things like, for instance, we mentor my niece, Marcia, that would not have been possible. So it has allowed us to do things that we couldn't have done if she was at work somewhere, some other company.
So you mentioned Marcia, and as you said, you mentor her. Has she had any sort of impact on Psychotactics? Are there plans to bring her in at some point as part of the business?
I wouldn't go so far. I'm pretty sure that I will be showing her stuff like Photoshop and a lot of stuff that over time she could use and help us, but also become skills for her own life. And yeah, there is no long-term stuff right now. She has helped us a lot as well because she was really struggling at school. And let me just back up a bit here. The biggest problem in learning is really gaps. You don't know where those gaps are and you don't know how to fill them. And so the only way to fill a gap, in my opinion, is what I've learned from Marcia, which is if I don't know what happened 3 years ago or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, then what I can do is create a kind of grid or a syllabus that everyone follows. So if you take the book, The Brain Audit, for instance, you might have learned a lot about marketing, but what we have now are these 7 red bags, which we considered in the Brain Audit. And then we discuss just those 7 red bags, and then we get fluency over those 7 red bags. And that's what it's taught me. It has taught me to kind of compartmentalize learning, and it has taught me that if the client doesn't get it, then it's my fault, and then we have to go back a few steps and make it even smaller. And if they still don't get it, we make that component even smaller. And we've used this in courses like the headline course. We've used this in the cartooning course. There are little things like, for instance, people don't know how to do thick and thin lines.
Thick and thin lines are what we teach in the cartooning course. When you're drawing something, you can apply pressure to the line, and that creates a factor of contrast.
A 5-year-old could do it, but no, it takes them a couple of weeks. And we got that, I would say, partly from Marcia, which is that if I don't understand this, it's not because I don't understand it, it's because you're not explaining it to me, or you're trying to get too much across to me in too little time. And so that's what I've learned from her. And of course, she's learning from us. So,
indeed. Are there other family members involved in the running of the business?
We had a cousin's daughter who helped us out, and this is the part. So these are the kind of things that you learn as a kid, and it sticks in your head where you say, don't hire family members, don't hire people you can't fire. It always gave me pause, even when Renuka was joining me, and then later on when this other family member. But what I realized was that the statement was completely off. It was, don't hire people who are hopeless. Don't hire people. Yeah, don't hire people who, from the very start, you can see that they're not concerned about punctuation. They're not concerned about deadlines. They're not concerned about stuff. But if you look at it from an employee point of view, or from a partner point of view, if they're going to do something this way, if she's going to say no, she's going to say no forever. So either I accept that or I don't. And of course, I'm not that smart, so it'll take a while. Same thing with the cousin's daughter. She was always on time, always diligent. She would tell us, I've got my exams coming up in 6 weeks, so you need to just send me some more stuff so I can finish it because I'm not going to have time. She did that the whole time. She told us like a couple of months before she wanted to leave that she was going to leave. And the ones that are hopeless, they were hopeless from the very start, like within a week. So to me, it's the signals come in pretty early, but we don't pay attention, and that's what causes the problem.
Okay. So let's talk about future planning. Psychotactics, you have a lot of info products that could definitely go on after you decide you no longer want to work in the business. There, you have your membership forum, 5000 BC, and you are extremely active in that forum. In fact, at times you've touted that is the uniqueness of the forum, is that you're there so much and that you're chiming in on so many threads. If there comes a time where you decide it's time to retire, or in a worse scenario, you're just unable to run Psychotactics, what's going to happen to the business?
When I started out 5000 BC, that wasn't my intention. My intention was to have kind of a whole bunch of people that were leaders, that were the people that would stick around and they would continue to help. And I would say that was kind of idealistic, because everyone has to run their own business. They're not getting paid to be members and give advice or do whatever it is that people do in 5000 BC. And so we went from, say, the year 2003 to 2009 with, say, one bunch of people that were there all the time. And almost 90% of them have gone on to grow their own businesses, have their own forums, do their own stuff, and they're not around anymore. And that was kind of frustrating, but I felt very happy about it. The fact that they had their own lives to lead, their own success, their own whatever. That left me at a kind of loose end, though. So I figured that it's never going to be a situation where it's hands-free. So I've seen forums which are hands-free, but that means that the owner never shows up. And so I tried it on a smaller basis in the article writing course and the headlines course and other courses, where I would say, okay, I'm going to give you a syllabus. And this was even more rigid than, say, 5000 BC, which tends to have a whole bunch of topics. And so you can have a whole bunch of people talking from their own perspective. But in a course, they have a syllabus. They've already studied something. They already know what they've studied. And it was just a matter of them following through for the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And even then, it fell apart. It would go for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And some people were determined enough to go 8 weeks. But for the most part, it fell apart. So I don't really have illusions about what's going to happen. I just think we'll just keep going until we can't keep going, and then we'll have a closing ceremony.
And what about the other Psychotactics products? Is there a way to have those continue selling after you no longer want the business?
I would, if that stage came where I didn't want to run the business, I would just let them go into the wild. It's free. We have the website up for the next 5 years or 10 years. I pay for the domain name, hosting, whatever, and we just keep it as a free resource. I tried to think about this from my own perspective. My father built a business. He ran it for 25 years. Was I interested? No, I wasn't. It's just a matter of, am I going to sell it to someone? Could I sell it to someone? Possibly. Would I sell it? I'm not that fussed about the money that it will bring. We're quite comfortable, so I'm not really sure that that's what I want to do, because things change, and all the stuff that we've done over the years, I would see it more as a legacy than, okay, let's sell it and make some more money and buy some more planes and yachts.
Has there been any thought of like training? I see some people that have made a name for themselves as experts, and then they create a training program where basically they pass on their wisdom and they certify people to train people the same way they have trained people in the past. Cesar Millan, the dog trainer, comes to mind. I know there are other examples, they just escape me at the moment. Has there been thought to doing anything like that, creating brain audit trainers, for example?
There has been for the longest time. probably goes back all the way to 2006, maybe 2007. And I've always threatened to do it. I've never done that. I think it takes a whole... I think it's possible. I think if I sold it, pre-sold it, then got the trainers in and trained them, it is possible. I'm not sure what it would do in terms of from a long-term perspective. So for it to have some kind of impact, you would have to have 100 trainers or 500 trainers over time. Because if you had 10 trainers, I don't know what they would do. They would probably help 100 people or 1,000 people. I don't know. And so that kind of confuses me, because all the time that I'm going to take in training those people is also going to take away time from the projects that I really want to do. So I want to write a book on talent. I want to write a book on, how to teach online. All of the stuff that we want to do is going to take away from that. It's also going to take away from courses that we have. We have so few courses anyway in a year. And people get very good at, say, writing headlines or writing articles or whatever. And could the trainers replace them or replace me? And that's happened in the article in the cartooning course. So Allison does the cartooning course, and no one misses me. So
okay.
It's been probably now close to 100 people who Allison has trained over the last 2 or 3 years. And they're all very happy. They were all very skeptical, but they're very happy. She started to make her own videos. She started to do her own stuff. And it's worked out really well. But the way we're looking at trainers is slightly different. I don't want the diligence to go away. So right now in the headline course, I was also looking at having a trainer. And what I do is I get people to go through the course, and then I pick people who have certain qualities. So for instance, they seem to spend a lot of time commenting on other people's posts. So they do their assignments really well, or as well as everybody else, but they also seem to be liked by other people. They seem to spend more time with other people. And to us, that's the core of Psychotactics. It is to be kind, be helpful, or be gone. And that's what I've been looking for. With this course that ends today, there are 4 people that fit that category. But then one of them will probably make a trainer, or 2 of them would make a trainer. And it depends on their situation as well. If they're running a business, if they're already super busy, and they're just learning this for a skill, then it's probably harder. But if they've decided, this is what I really like to do, I've just been through the course, then the next time I have the course, I will have them on the course as like a co-pilot. And then I'll watch what they're doing. And that's what we did with Allison. And she did perfectly well. And then we said, okay, here you go. So we literally handed over the training system with all the IP just across. It wasn't like, okay, you have to pay us $5,000 every year. No, it's like, we'll pay you.
So it sounds like you actually do have a little bit of a training system going in some areas, just nothing formalized and structured.
Yeah, because the way I've seen, I'm not saying that the other trainers don't help. Everyone has their own contribution to the planet. It's just, I don't know how to balance that factor of that people put so much trust in our system, because none of our courses have any money-back guarantee, the online courses. I don't know if you're aware of that. So
I don't know that I knew that or not.
Yeah, so we guarantee skill. We don't guarantee your money back. So other people, they guarantee your money back, but they don't guarantee skill. So what we're saying is that no one will end up without the skill. Like no one. Now, there's not going to be the top rankers and the average and the people who didn't get it. It's everyone ends up with a skill. So if it's article writing, everyone can write an article. within, say, 90 minutes. If it's headline writing, everyone can write a headline 8 different ways in 10 minutes. If it's cartooning, everyone can draw a cartoon that a magazine or a newspaper like the Washington Post or whatever would accept and say, yes, we could use this. So everyone, it's not one
So this
person,
interview went
this
on
is the
for
star.
another 20
I don't
30
believe in that
minutes,
nonsense.
and it's best that we split it up into 2 bits. And we will continue by talking about courses and how we get people to be skilled, because to me that is an urgent factor, that you should be able to draw and write and cook and do whatever you want to do in life. And with the limited resources that we have at Psychotactics, we should be able to get you to do that quite easily. That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye.